Hello everyone, my name is Jacqueline Posley and I'm the creator of Policy for the People, which is a local initiative centered around fostering a more educated voting body. Today I have the absolute privilege of being here at Town Meeting TV Studios in Burlington with three amazing candidates for office in Vermont in 2026. They'll do their own personal introductions, but I'd like to first run down their districts. I always joke that it feels a little bit like Hunger Games when you start naming out districts, but nonetheless, first we have Ali Dang, who is running for House District Chittenden 18. We have incumbent Senator Joe Major, who represents the Windsor District, and we have incumbent Representative Emily Karras-Duncan, who represents House District Windham 6. So let's, if you don't mind, begin with introductions.
Yes, my name is Ali Jeng. I am a former Burlington City Councilor for 8 years. I am also a member of the Burlington New American Community, and currently I work for Building Bright Futures, an organization mandated by the state of Vermont to look into the well-being of children and families. I'm also the executive director of the Sister City Partnership between Chess, where I grew up, and the city of Burlington. So we'll talk about all of that. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And I'm Emily Karras-Duncan. I am the representative for Wilmington, Whitingham, and Halifax, the Windham 6 district. I live in Whitingham, and when I'm not in the legislature, I am an artist and a natural dyer and quilter, an artist educator, and a nonprofit consultant.
And a very good one at that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
My name is Joe Major. I am the senator representing Windsor District, and I am also the executive director of the Upper Valley Aquatic Center in White River Junction, Vermont. I just completed my first term. I am on the vice chair of the Agriculture Committee as well as on the Institutions Committee. Institutions covers corrections, IT, and government buildings.
And I should also point out that I sit on the Commerce and Economic Development Committee.
Excellent. Yes. Thank you. So our first conversation is kind of a more in-depth look at how your backgrounds, your careers, your civic engagement really informs your work. If we could please start with Senator Major.
So I came into public office simply by chance. I'm a transplant here from Baltimore. I'm originally from Buffalo, New York. I was, as I and still am, the executive director of the Upper Valley Aquatic Center, and the opening came on the select board in Hartford, and they, kind of recruited me, and I said yes, and I won. Imagine that, and then COVID hit, and so I didn't run for re-election. But halfway through the year, the treasurer of the town decided to retire. And so, like Al Pacino in Godfather 3, just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. And I took over as the treasurer of the town of Hartford. I'm still the treasurer of the town of Hartford. Dick McCormick in the Senate. He decided to retire, and I was semi-recruited to run, and I won that one too. Holy moly, And you asked about how it informs you, and I think one of the things that all three of us will say is how being in Vermont, which is 1% African American or black, informs us in how our decision making. I am, now Vermont has been in existence since 1791. I'm only the fourth African American senator in that history. And is it always on the forefront of my mind? Not necessarily, but it's definitely in the back of my mind and the things that I legislate on.
Excellent. Thank you. Representative Karras-Duncan.
Well, so I grew up in Rutland. I'm a 5th generation Vermonter. And I came from a family that was very involved from Rutland County, very involved in the county, very involved in politics. We were definitely, the news was on all the time. And my dad was a senator from 2000. Oh, excuse me.
No worries.
Little live action there. So my dad was a senator from 2006 to 2012. And his last term, I actually interned with him and got to see the process up in, got to learn a lot about it, and it promptly said, while that is interesting, that is not for me. So I went off and I kind of came at things from a more activist side of things. I got involved in some housing policy and politics, both when I was in New York and Philly. I ran my own nonprofit space, so advocating for arts and artists to also be seen as small business owners and having kind of the broad base of needs that most any other citizen needs, including housing and places to work and all of that sort of thing. So when I came back to Vermont to be closer to family, I had sort of thought maybe I'd want to dip my toes back into politics, but I was definitely not like on a trajectory. But my representative stepped down and they needed somebody, and I figured if they were calling my number, then they definitely needed somebody. So, so I gave it a whirl and I won. So, yeah. So my background in the arts has been a really interesting place to bring a different kind of perspective, particularly when it comes to needs of working people in general.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm doing this.
No worries.
Thank you for the question. And again, thank you so much for creating this space and sharing this table with incredible people who are well respected and also who know the challenges facing Vermonters. My educational background is in public international law. That's what I studied. But what I work on is education. Since I moved to Vermont, I've been working only in the education field. Burlington School District, 13 years, and since 2021 at Building Bright Futures. What brought me to politics is in 2017, an organization called Rights and Democracy, where I co-founded it. So to just help candidates to run for office. That was the only thing. I never thought that I would get into office until one day a seat opened up in my neighborhood in the New North End, and Shay Tutton and the campaign director asked me to meet with them at a coffee shop. They gave me a lot of shots of espressos. What I didn't know is they were telling me, okay, we think you got all it takes for you to step up and be a leader in this community. And they explained city council what it is. I had no idea who was even the mayor of the city. So that's how I got into politics, and it was a special election, and I won against incumbents and Republicans, and it went really well. So since then, I won, let's say, 4 terms, from 2018 to 2017 to 2024, and was able to, enact all my campaign promises. So when I see that, there is no, let me allow other people to come in. But right now, I'm going to the next level.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So Vermonters have a variety of concerns about our futures, but undoubtedly at the top of everyone's list is housing and healthcare in some capacity. So can you talk a little bit about how you will make immediate change within the first 180 days of your new term to directly benefit Vermonters who are struggling with housing and or healthcare?
Well, healthcare, if I may, healthcare. I'm really upset that the governor vetoed S-190, the healthcare bill. This was a bill that put us on the way to lowering the highest healthcare premiums in the country. And he decided to veto it. And he vetoed it, and his reasoning for vetoing it wasn't equitable. What it did was because it targeted teachers and people on the exchange, and not the entire body of people. And what he didn't realize is this was just the first step. So instead of doing that, he decided to do an executive order, which has to go through the House and the Senate anyway, and will take a longer period of time. We passed this in the Senate, and now it's going to take longer and for this to come to fruition. And what it does is now people's property taxes, because education is directly linked to property taxes, and the highest driver of our education is health care. Now what's happening is they're going to have to deal with the high property taxes that they were going to deal with before. So I was incredibly disheartened by that. I'm hoping that this was not politics in play because it's an election year. I am apt to believe that, to not say that the Dems had a win with this, and yet his executive order came where it's in phases. So what are we trying to do? We're trying to make Vermont more affordable, yet he's doing things that are counterintuitive to that. Other than that, things are great.
I have to share Joe's frustration. I think also something that you're touching on, Joe, is that that was one of those bills that really spoke to the way that the House and Senate really work well together. You know, it got a really solid vetting. It was, really well set up. And then it comes over to the House, and we get to go and do that really deep dive, take that fine-tooth comb, start to tease it out. And because of a number of variables, this is where we landed as a beginning phase to start chipping away at these high driving costs, which I could go on and on about the consolidation in healthcare that has led us here, and the hollowing out of primary care. And this executive order is not necessarily going to set us up for more primary care to help ease the work on our hospitals, and it's just a constant tumbling effect. But we have to, it's one of those things that certainly can't be done in quick sweeping types of executive orders. Like, we do have to do the work of vetting and making sure, because there are a lot of players at the table, and it affects the healthcare and housing. Like, all of these things are interlinked between healthcare, housing, education, workforce. All of that stuff is really interlinked. But the consolidation in the healthcare seems to be an area that we can start really pulling at and help kind of break away some of this entrenchment that we have. When it comes to housing, I'll tell you my big bandwagon issue, in addition to the fact that we do need to build more housing, we need to preserve our housing. We have good housing falling off the back end into disrepair because the cost of repair is so high. We need to help our citizens and Vermonters be able to hold on to their homes. We also are going to end up at some point with a very large housing stock that's going to need to be taken care of, stewarded, and worked on. And if we don't set up the frameworks for people to be able to do that work, these are, they're personal investments, but they are our collective investments, right? So we have to help, the community at large, both our housing and our industrial buildings and commercial buildings. Housing preservation is a big one, so.
Okay. Yeah. I love it. Am I hearing if I may, ad-lib from my list, that this might come up again if?
Oh, it'll definitely come up again.
Just wondering.
No, it'll definitely.
Just making sure that'll be tenaciously gone after this next term.
Yeah,
okay?
this. And here's the thing, and I'm sorry, I'll leave just for a second. It's just that's frustrating throughout this entire process. Is the governor constantly was just pointing fingers at the legislature. Everything they're doing, not doing anything, and then we come up something. And just so we're clear, he was his people were part of that process of the health care bill all along the way, and at no point did they go, "Hey, I'm not good with that," or "not good with that," until the end. And so that's when your spidey sense goes off. Maybe this was done in a political realm instead of something that is done for the betterment of Vermonters.
I kind of forget the question, but because the conversation was so rich.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
So just in your first 180 days of your term, how would you tackle two issues that are paramount to Vermonters right now, which are healthcare and housing?
Housing. Okay, thank you. But to piggyback to what just the senator and the House representative said, we need more collaboration between the governor's office and the legislator. I think this legislation was very well crafted, and from my perspective, it was just the beginning. But the fact that the governor vetoed it was a disappointment for a lot of people. But let's bring it back and let's collaborate more from the get-go in order to serve Vermonters better. The fundamental problem in the state of Vermont is we do not have people. That's the elephant in the room. Many people do not want to tackle it. And all of these issues that we're hearing about is linked to the fact that we are only 600,000 people, and we are also an aging state. What are we doing in attracting workers in the state of Vermont to increase the tax base? Okay? What are we doing to better support vulnerable populations such as elderly who are taking more into the healthcare because they need it more? We need new people. We need people who can work and grow the economy of the state of Vermont. That's one thing. The second thing, why healthcare has a lot of problems is also the state of Vermont, the way in which they are applying to federal grants. Currently, the state received nearly $200 million every year for the next 5 years, called the Rural Health Transformation Grant. As a board member of the Community Health Center of Burlington, serving 30,000 people, managing 9 sites, Chittenden cannot access that money. And when we ask the legislators about it, many people do not know. The collaboration between the legislator is not only with the governor, but also with the administration and also around the implementation of all of these bills that we are passing. We need to definitely understand our communities, strengthen the collaboration with the institutions that are serving our people and the legislature so that it's a circle everybody will be taken care of. Let's bring the people, let's apply well to federal grants, and let's collaborate better.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I love that. I always like to point out, people talk about 600,000. 600,000 is all of us. That's including children. Yeah. That's including people who may or may not work all of the time. So it's actually a much lower number than the 600,000 that are carrying Vermont on all of our backs, really. Yes. And so it changes the perspective and the scope a little bit. It's not 600,000. There are 600,000 of us, yes, but it's not 600,000 taxpayers, which exactly. is quite interesting to think about, and I don't know that many other states battle that in the way that we do. So thank you for keeping that in mind. So next, so we've watched ICE grow its presence across Vermont and across America. What will you do during your term to protect Vermonters of color when we go to work, when we go to school, and when we navigate everyday life? And one of the things that I think is so important, I saw a couple of bills be introduced in this past session, and I think they were a beautiful effort. At the same time, I think one of the things that is neglected is the piece that comes with every person of color battling the same fight, but not necessarily, when it comes to racial profiling, being included in the creation of those bills. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit of my ad-libbing for my actual question, but I just wanted to preface that to see what your thoughts are on that.
We ran out of time for one S-208, which would have unmasked ICE agents. And the bill would have in essence been challenged in court to see if it was constitutional because of a state overriding federal law. This is a very difficult time. And I will also say this, we do have some Vermonters that feel that ICE is perfectly within their right to do what they're doing. despite data and despite facts and despite anything. So it is incumbent upon us to educate, to even sometimes go to the streets and peacefully protest. Next 2.5 years or 2 years is going to be a very difficult time. And you think that, because when I came here to Vermont, you have, at the time it was Bernie Sanders and Senator Leahy, and at the time Congressman Welch, and we thought everybody was holding arm in arm and singing Kumbaya. And that, in essence, is not the case. We have our struggles, just like every state. And so I think we have to continue to craft legislation and let the courts decide, is it constitutional? We have to do the things and educate people on what they can and cannot, what ICE can and cannot do. But this is a difficult time in America. But I also want to say this. Sometimes when you're in the eye of the hurricane, you think it is the worst time that it has ever been. We have not grown up in Jim Crow. That was one of the worst times. Oh, we have not grown up in slavery. We can keep going back and say, oh, if we know our history, then this was not the worst time. We have challenges, but we will overcome those challenges. And generally, things are cyclical, and I think we will be better at the end of this than we will at the beginning.
Thank you for that, Joe. Really, really appreciate it. I think when I think about this, because it really does drive at the heart of that Federalist question, which then unravels a whole lot of things. And I have, now that I'm in office, I have even more feelings about about the relationship of states to federal government. But I think with this particular question, because there are limitations to what the state can do and what we can do locally and all that, my focus is really on how does Vermont set our example? What is our tone? What are our policies? How do we do our equitable policing? How do we ensure that we're not doing racial profiling and things like that? How can we, if we're gonna host these folks, I'm a real big believer in the power of hospitality, can we show them the example of how you're gonna comport yourself when you're in our state? And as far as reintroducing some of these bills and bringing more folks to the table and really hashing them out because I think what I did begin to notice also is that maybe we didn't actually ask the right questions. Did we get to the actual right needs in those bills? So going back and having another look there. And the other thing I do agree about education, because education, we love education, is that it also speaks in general to kind of the public information flow in general in Vermont. I think because we have so many channels with social media and everything else, it makes it far more complicated. I would love to see us have kind of more coalesced response and have more readily available information, like know your rights and bystander training, which becomes very important for folks that don't, are not folks of color, don't look like us. How can they step in and make sure that we're safely supporting people in these moments?
Yep. Thank you for the question and great answers. And I think as a member of the New American community, an immigrant myself, when Donald Trump got reelected, the first thing that I have done is to open up a TikTok account, and it's called Ali Racine. Anyone can find it on TikTok. But it was to provide the right information to the people that need it the most, which are the immigrants, whether you are, green card holder or you just got here. I think information really matters. The TikTok account has nearly 60,000 followers right now. And all I've been doing is to subscribe to the White House, subscribe to, Washington Times, New York Times, to be able to follow what is happening at the federal level. And also be able to tell people at the right time what is happening in the United States. In Vermont, I have seen also people showing up to protest all the time. and some of them doing it very peacefully, and sometimes there are tensions, right? Vermont, in the rocky soil of Vermont, there is no space for hatred. There is no space for, we all belong. And I think Vermonters made it very clear. But if I am elected, I will continue to identify what are organizations serving the immigrants in here to be able to get legal counsel and legal access, and also be able to say no when it's needed. But most importantly, anyone listening to this around the country, we need to flip the House and the Senate at the federal level. I think it's the best aspect also that we can do, to show up and to vote, have our voices heard. So all of this should be able to stop.
Excellent. Yeah, I really want to give a special thank you to a few organizations, Migrant Justice. I live in the NEK, so Nekasan and all of the likes, who are still existing in a time where they really have targets on their back, and their communities have targets on their backs, and they're still doing really good work right now to protect individuals who are here by whatever means. And so I hope in this giving year that people will consider them and consider the work that they're still doing, even when they're not allowed in the spotlight anymore. So, changing gears a little bit, can you name 3 measurable goals voters can count on you to chase tenaciously throughout your term?
I've been the first one to go every single time, so I'm gonna.
Yes, there was a little order, but it was flowing so well. So if we can start on this end, that would be great.
3 measurable goals, and I think there is one bill called S30 that was passed, and it was for the state of Vermont to identify 3 state partners. The state of Vermont got the proposal from the Vermont National Guard to partner with 3 countries: Austria, Macedonia, and Senegal. All of those 3 countries will need to, I want to push for them to be able to bring workers that we need here in all industries. This is an idea that I've been talking to a couple of the legislators, and this is something that I would want to see have a program that will allow workers who are high workers, about workers that we need here, to come from those 3 countries through a partnership. It already exists, but how do we strengthen it? One thing. The second thing is also, I want to establish a better partnership between the legislator and the municipal government of Burlington. There are a lot of charter changes that we have not been elected. I want to be the voice, basically, of my city at the State House. And 3, I want to make sure that through Act 76, which is an act related to making childcare very affordable, which is great, but how do we bring the capacity? People have the means now to pay for childcare, but they cannot find them. Capacity building is something that I would also want to see as a champion on.
I would say education is something that's really important to me. Hands-on learning and education, and how we are going to, I know that we have, particularly in relationship to the property tax, how are we creating these capacities within our systems so that we can educate all of our children equitably? I want to continue to think about how our school districts can partner with each other and work together. And this whole, Ali, you've been saying the whole time, this whole conversation about, frankly, Vermont is a rural state who can't afford to not work together. We have to work together. We have limited resources. And it's, when we look at our budget, it's not like we don't have nothing. We got something. But, I'm like, which is great. But we are going to need to, it's nothing, our $9 billion is nothing to the, 200 and whatever billion dollars that, the next state over has, right? We don't have a coastline, we have an aging population, all of these things. So I really want to make sure that our schools are part of that ingredient that can attract those new folks, get those workers that we need for healthcare, elder care industry. I'm also an artist, so small manufacturing is something that's very important to me. The arts, I call them cultural R&D, so I am constantly trying to find ways that we can continue to support the arts as a business sector in Vermont, and a business sector that has a great potential for growth. I want to create more exportables. Let's get our products out. Let's go.
Yes.
And then lastly is land use. Making sure that we are balancing our environmental needs with our need for housing. Within that conversation, of course, thinking about housing preservation and how we can draw down our energy usage. Those are all things. It's a funny little soup, but those are all in the same conversation. Particularly my area is incredibly rural. Nobody out there is trying to pay paradise and put up a parking lot, but we do need to be mindful about land acquisition and transition and folks being able to create a place where their kids can come and enjoy and stay and grow instead of having to leave and come back like myself, who almost didn't make it back because the housing was too expensive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to healthcare.
Okay.
For me, I want to, if I'm elected, to actually have a healthcare bill and eventually law that Vermonters will see some substantial savings in their pocketbook. It is for small businesses, for, as I say, our constituents and Vermonters. It has been for rural hospitals. Our healthcare system is incredibly broken. And I'd like to, at the end, like I said, if I'm elected to the biennium, that we have a concrete bill that we can see that there is a light at the end of the tunnel and it's not a train. That's the first thing. Obviously, housing. But I think to Representative Duncan's, we need housing, but sometimes we forget about the environmental part of it. I think the governor said that we need to build 7,000 houses per year. That's not realistic. I mean, let's really get realistic numbers and what can we do, because the one thing about Vermont that that attracts people that can afford it is the environment, and we have to maintain that. It's so important, and quite frankly, I'm going to say that attract people of some diversity. That is, it's still something that that we struggle with. For whatever reason. I don't, you can say whatever you want, but we are not a diverse state in any way, shape, or form. Despite our thought processes and what we think we are not a diverse state. So how can we attract people of color, people of different religions, people of different thought processes to our state, and to live in this sounds Pollyanna in harmony. So,
But it's good though.
yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that, to have some hope, but it is a difficult thing to do. Our affordability process is my niece is a nurse. And she thought about, when I moved here, she thought about moving here, but it was just too expensive for her family, her husband and children to move here, even with nursing positions open. So we have to solve that problem. And I think that's, a few things that, are at the top of the list. Yeah. Look, there are 180 legislators, 30 in the Senate and 150 in the House. And when you pose a question like that, sometimes, and not to mention the governor, when you pose a question like that, when you're running, you think you're going to change the world. Then you see how actually hard it is to move the needle, and you go, wow, and you have to have and compromise on a lot of things that you didn't think that you needed to compromise on. So if we can move the needle a little bit on some of the things that we all talked about, I think those things are wins.
Beautiful. Well, and the affordability piece is a beautiful segue to our last question. Last of these questions, and it's largely full-time Vermonters agree that our cost of living has reached an unsustainable level. Can you elaborate on your ideas to make Vermont more affordable for everyday Vermonters? Would you like to start first, Duncan?
Sure. I think a lot about our collective investment. Again, that collective $9 billion that we have, and how are we leveraging it? How are we using it? And how are we creating systems where people aren't just incentivized to work better together, but they can succeed in doing that, working better together, because they're not running up against roadblocks. So like Ali was saying, if you're setting legislation, what is the downstream effect of that? How are we rolling that out? How are we getting folks the information so they can execute well on it? And I think if we can tighten up, it's not big and sexy, it's like kind of small and little, but it's like if you can tighten up those things, that actually, it's those pennies that end up really saving up. I think just, better unit cohesion across Vermont would be great. So that conversation about how are our municipalities, you're talking about Burlington, I see that down in my area too. It's like, how are our municipalities able to work with the state effectively, cost effectively? I don't think I've ever lived in a place where your tax dollars really have you in this like club with your other fellow taxpaying citizens, right? Like, we are collective investors in Vermont. So in the checkup on our investment, where do we need to put our energies so that we're doing it more effectively?
Absolutely.
Yep. I think you talked about it earlier. If we say we are 600,000 people, are we really 600,000 people who are able and paying to the taxes? How do we grow the tax base? I think more people, we need more people. We need more people, we need more people. We need more people, right?
Let me guess. We need more people.
And yes, we need more people, right? And I think the senator also made it very clear that we also need more diversity, because diversity is a gift. Diversity is also our future, right? And the element also of why Vermont is not affordable is we invest a lot into education, educating our children, and when they graduate, they don't come back. This out-migration too of people like me who've been here a long time ago, but they all gone now, right? Bringing people is one thing, but keeping people who are here, working, buying cars, selling homes, opening businesses, how do we keep them here? Let's focus on that. The element also of, how do you say it? Basically, we need to reduce duplication. Like this, many people doing the same exact thing. It's not centralized. We need a better system of government in order for the state to be more affordable. We need also to go and very hard on federal grants. Federal grants, we need to apply, even have an office that is only talking about looking for grants, bringing them here. We need also people who are just tasked to find investors to come here in Vermont. I don't think we are selling Vermont well. We need to sell the state of Vermont everything that it provides in order for people to see it as attractive, as beautiful, and as healthy to raise kids and families.
Excellent. Yeah, so I'm originally from Mississippi, and we call it the brain drain in Mississippi, which is essentially, I think a lot of rural states face that. Ours is exacerbated because our population is so small. But looking at other rural states, especially other rural New England states, and how New Hampshire, for instance, is beating the brain drain and retaining those residents, constituents, taxpayers as they turn 18 and want to try something new.
Yep.
Thank you for that. We are running up against time, but there are questions, just one for each of you, if that's okay. And if I could start with Rep. Duncan. So looking back at the bills you sponsored during your previous terms, which one did you believe will have the greatest long-term impact on Vermonters and in your district that you would like to talk about today?
It's a small one that snuck by, but there was one that had to do with raising the sales limit for small at-home accessory kitchens. So from $10,000 to $30,000. So that, and the reason why I pick on that one is because I think about in that land the conversation about diversity, about home business, and about food certainly being like one of the things that brings us all together. Starting a small home food-based manufacturing business is, I'm not gonna say it's easy, but it's something that is accessible to folks, and making it so that they can start to really build that brand and get things kind of moving at their local coffee shops or farmers markets or whatever, and then having just a little bit more of a cushion, which is adding supplemental income for their families. I think for especially when we're talking about diversity and bringing folks in, having a accessible, environmentally friendly, because there is that conversation when we're talking about, it's a whole economy kind of thing. That allows people to really build up this, doing what we're talking about, building up for their family, being able to stay in Vermont. It's a small one, but I think it will have a measurable impact. I'm sure we will see more food-based businesses, and I would love to also, and I hope that combined with this study that we have on reseeding our Culinary Institute will also have a bearing on our agricultural community, and bringing all sorts of folks. Because the thing I always think about with diversity is, especially with a place like Vermont, I remember when we were starting to receive new Americans when I was living in Rutland, and I talked to my dad, and I was like, Dad, can you just remember that not everybody's from a city? Folks might actually want to go live out in the country. And there are people in countries around the world that are people of color. I think programs like that help make transitions to a place like rural Vermont more accessible. So that's
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I've spent more of my 8 winters, I count it by winters, in rural Vermont than I have in more populated areas. So. More power to those of us out in the rural Vermont areas.
We can put on boots too.
Yes, absolutely. Agriculture is a great segue. So, Senator Major, as Vice Chair of the Senate Agricultural Committee, you spent much of your first term working on issues affecting farms, rural communities, and state infrastructure. Looking back, what legislative accomplishment are you most proud of, and what specific policy changes would you prioritize this time around?
For me, S60 was something that was at the top of the list. And what that was, we talk about climate change all the time and how it affects farming. And over the last 3 years, we had 2 floods and a drought. And for a great deal of the time, FEMA was nowhere to be found. And even less was for small and medium-sized farms. What that bill particularly did, and also with small and medium-sized farms, they cannot afford crop insurance. So they're doubly hit. FEMA's not coming to the rescue, and also they don't have crop insurance. So what we did is we crafted a bill that small and medium-sized farms can get a little bit of money to help them continue on. I will say this, in the last decade, our dairy farms have been cut in half, from 900 to 450. And our dairy farms have produced $5 billion in revenue. We have to keep them going. So our small farms that are dairy farms, we want to make sure that they are sustainable. So that was, in a small way, it is not the end all and be all, but in a small way, helping those small and medium-sized farms continue on. We have a lot of work to do, and if I'm on the Agriculture Committee, if I get elected, and I'm on the Agriculture Committee in the next biennium, I will absolutely continue to try to help those things.
Okay. So Ali, you emphasize expanding access to affordable housing, childcare, and economic opportunity in your platform. Many Vermonters support those goals, but are also concerned about rising taxes and state spending. Can you talk a little bit about how you want to fund those priorities?
Yeah. I think for affordable childcare, I think the state of Vermont is already doing great in terms of making it more affordable through CCAFP, childcare subsidy. Anyone who don't have enough money can apply for subsidy and receive it. But the problem now is the capacity itself. We need to, support childcare providers, or we need to look into making buildings more, changing zoning codes in order for people to open up childcare and also have the workforce to sustain that program. When it comes to housing, from my perspective, it would be good to bring experts in the room, such as former mayor of Burlington, Miro Weinberger, who is pushing every single day for the people to build more. And it's not to build also in the lands that we need to preserve, but to change zonings in cities and municipalities in order for the density, meaning we need to build up. Also, when we talk about building, there is also an element of just underground infrastructure that needs to happen. And also, how do we make sure that the lake is clean as well, right? And in terms of funding it, I think it will be good it has to be a public and private partnership. It's not about raising new taxes, but it is about making sure that the resources we have, we use them efficiently. We attract more builders, right, to build affordable housing, and also to access grants with the help of our federal delegation in order to get more money in the state of Vermont for everything also that we need. And most importantly, we need new people. More people, good working people, we need that.
Excellent. So I think we are against our time here, but I did want to give an opportunity if you'd like to share your website, campaign website, and or your social media.
JoeMajorVT.com, and I am on Facebook and Instagram. Look, here's the deal. I'm old, all right? So, but I still try to get on my social media and try to post constantly and video constantly. I think that, and one of the things I found out is it is now the place where people go to get their information. Walter Cronkite has been dead for a long time. And so the people get their information from social media. And so I think it's important that that's the platform that we try to get our information out.
Hi, you can find me at eCarisDuncan on all platforms. My website is ecarisduncan.com. And I'm an 80s baby. I was one of the little Luddite 80s baby that did not take well to social media, but I generally prefer direct communication. So feel free to email me at ecarisduncan@gmail.com.
Yep, alijengvt.com is my website. And you can find me on TikTok, Ali Brasin, right? You can find me on Instagram at Ali4House, right? I think you'll find me. You put my name out there, you'll find me, okay?
Put it into the universe.
Yes.
I love that.
But I am also going to find you. I am knocking on your doors, and I will be having discussion, and I've been sharing also the stories of just connecting with you. That's the best element of this campaign, and hope to have your vote on August 11th. Thank you.
And as for Policy for the People, you can find me here tomorrow at 5:00 p.m. I would be remiss if I didn't stop to say Town Meeting TV has supported me through so many different initiatives and situations. And so thank you for giving us the platform to speak freely today and tomorrow. And I hope to see you back here again. Thank you.